3 powerful vitamins every man over 60 needs before it's too late. They say a man's fire dims with age, but that's a quiet lie we come to accept without question. The truth is, it's not the body that gives up first, but the belief that we still deserve to feel alive, wanted, and strong. There's a deeper tragedy than physical decline. The silent erosion of desire, the quiet surrender fatigue, the slow fading of the man we once were. But age does not mean absence. Your body, even now, is still listening. It may speak in softer tones, but it speaks. It asks to be nourished, tended, respected. The pulse still drums beneath the skin. And what it craves is not youth, but presence, clarity, touch. There are 3 powerful allies, simple, natural, often overlooked, that can reawaken your strength, your vitality, your quiet hunger for life. These are not just vitamins for the body, but food for the man inside it. This may be your last chance to hear the call, before the silence becomes permanent. He sat across from me in a quiet room that smelled faintly of cedar and old paper. His hands, weathered and strong, rested on his knees. 73 years old, a retired carpenter. His voice trembled when he spoke, not from weakness, but from the weight of everything he hadn't said in years. "I don't feel like a man anymore," he confessed, his eyes fixed on the floor. "Not the way I used to." I asked him what he missed most. He smiled gently, almost embarrassed. Waking up with energy, wanting to be touched, feeling like I had something to give. But what struck me wasn't his loss. It was his longing, still alive, still pulsing beneath the tiredness. He wasn't asking for miracles, just a return to himself. We began small: nourishment, breath, awareness. 3 tiny adjustments that shifted everything. 3 simple nutrients that the body had been quietly starving for. Within weeks, his voice changed. His posture lifted. And he said to me one morning, almost shyly, "I dreamed of her last night, and I didn't feel numb. I felt there." If you ever felt something similar, if these words reach something deep in you, don't let the silence grow. Leave a like, subscribe, or share your story in the comments. You're not alone in this. There's a quiet hunger in men after 60 that few talk about. Not just a hunger for touch or passion, but the hunger to feel vital, connected, and seen. For decades, masculinity has been measured by what you do, how hard you work, how strong you are, how much you provide. But what happens when the doing slows down, when the body softens, when the noise of career fades, when the children have grown and gone? For many, a strange emptiness appears. Not dramatic, not loud, but persistent, like a low hum behind the eyes. It begins in subtle ways. Waking up tired even after a full night's sleep. A sense that your spark is dimming. Less interest in intimacy. Less motivation to move. Often, it's blamed on age or just the way things are. But under the surface, something deeper is at play. The body's silent cry for nourishment, restoration, attention. Not performance enhancers or quick fixes, but real elemental support. And that begins at the cellular level. With time, the body absorbs less of what it needs. Nutrients once taken for granted, magnesium, vitamin D, zinc, B-complex, start to vanish from the system like mist in morning sun. And without them, the systems of desire, energy, and mood begin to flicker. It's not about brokenness. It's about depletion, like a well that hasn't dried, but hasn't been refilled. Imagine an old garden left untended, not dead, just waiting. The roots are still there, the soil still fertile, but the leaves hang limp and the fruit never ripens. That's what happens inside the male body after 60, when it's starved of key nourishment. And just like a garden, all it takes is the right elements, consistently given for the life to come back. Men are often taught to ignore their inner worlds, to push through pain, to tough out fatigue. But your biology doesn't respond to force. It responds to rhythm, respect, care. The truth is, no matter how many years have passed, the male body still has a capacity for pleasure, strength, and connection. What's needed is a new approach, not driven by urgency, but rooted in understanding. There's also an emotional layer that often goes unseen. For many men, the loss of vitality isn't just physical, it's personal. It touches pride, memory, identity. It brings back shadows of old failures, distant betrayals, moments of shame. The body remembers what the mind tries to bury. And over time, that emotional residue accumulates, clouding the system like fog over a lake. That's why this isn't just about taking 3 vitamins and hoping for a miracle. It's about acknowledging that there's still time, but not infinite time. That the body, when properly supported, can reawaken. That what seems lost is often only sleeping. And the door back to vitality is smaller now, yes, but still open. Across cultures, older men were once seen as vessels of wisdom and sensual grace. Not performers, but presences. Not driven by urgency, but by depth. Our modern culture has forgotten this. It sells speed, distraction, and artificial fixes. But true vitality is slower, quieter, rooted in something more honest. So when we speak of these 3 powerful vitamins, we're not talking about magic pills. We're talking about keys, subtle, vital tools the body still knows how to use. Tools that support your natural systems of desire, mood, strength, and presence. Not to become someone else, but to return to who you are, before it's too late. Desire doesn't vanish overnight. It slips away quietly, not like a door slamming shut, but like a light fading with each passing season. One day, you realize it's been weeks since you felt that familiar pull, that inner stirring that once made your body feel like home. You might brush it off, blame stress, or think, it's just part of getting older. But a deeper ache lingers, not for performance necessarily, but for that aliveness, that whisper want, that sense of being deeply human. Without the right nourishment, the systems responsible for desire become sluggish, like an old radio picking up only static. Hormonal shifts, poor absorption of key nutrients, and chronic low energy all contribute. But the tragedy isn't just a biological slowdown. It's the silence men are taught to keep. No one asks an older man if he still longs to be touched, to feel needed. And so he folds that part of himself away, quietly grieving something he's not sure he's allowed to miss. But here's the truth. That part of you is still there. It's not gone, it's waiting. And with the right support, it can return, not like a firework, but like a flame that finally remembers how to burn. There's a quiet, aching fear that many men carry after 60. The fear that they're no longer enough, not strong enough, not energetic enough, not desirable enough. It often begins in the bedroom, but it spreads like ink in water. Suddenly, it's not just about intimacy. It's about self-worth. A hesitation before taking off your shirt. A reluctance to initiate touch. A voice inside whispering, "What if I can't live up to who I once was?" This fear is rarely spoken aloud. It simmers in silence, masked by humor or detachment. But beneath it is a deep, human longing to still matter, to still be wanted. Nutrient deficiencies can make the spiral worse. When the body is deprived of the vitamins that regulate mood, energy, and hormone balance, even small doubts feel heavier. It becomes harder to shake off insecurities, to feel grounded in your skin. And yet, this fear is not the truth of who you are. It's a signal that your body is asking for support and your heart is asking to be seen. The path back to confidence doesn't begin with performance. It begins with presence, with feeding the system that supports not just function, but feeling. You are not broken. You are not past your peak. You are simply in need of reconnection, and it's not too late. There comes a moment, often under the stark bathroom light, when a man studies the body that has carried him through decades and feels a sudden jolt of unfamiliarity. Skin that was once taut now folds softly. Shoulders that bore lumber and children alike slope a little lower. Scars, spots, a slight swell at the waist speak stories he never volunteered to tell. This quiet confrontation with a mirror can seed a private shame, the kind that convinces a man to dim the lights, change behind a half-closed door, or slip out of his partner's reach before their fingertips trace what time is etched. Yet beneath this shame is biology craving restoration. Collagen depends on vitamin C. Testosterone leans on zinc, muscle tone on vitamin D, and magnesium. Starved of these, the body not only changes faster, it forgets how to feel strong. What if the mirror is less a judge and more a messenger, reminding you that nourishment is still an option, that strength can return in quieter, steadier forms? The reflection you dread may be the gateway back to a body you recognize, if you answer its call now. For many men past 60, the emotional landscape begins to flatten. Not because the feelings are gone, but because they've been buried under years of silence, duty, and distraction. You may find yourself less reactive, less joyful, less alive. Not sad, exactly, just disconnected. Moments that once stirred something now pass like distant clouds. This numbness is not a character flaw. It's a physiological response. Chronic nutrient depletion, especially of B-complex vitamins and magnesium, can slowly dim the brain's ability to regulate emotion and connection. Sleep falters, tension builds, and the nervous system becomes stuck in survival mode. Over time, you may forget what it feels like to fully arrive in a moment with your partner, your breath, your senses. This numbness extends into touch, too, into the bedroom, into the soft spaces where intimacy once flowed freely. You may pretend nothing's wrong. You may convince yourself that this is just aging, but something inside you knows it's not. The ache for connection is still alive. It's just buried beneath the static. And with the right kind of nourishment, the fog can lift, not all at once, but slowly, beautifully, until one morning, something inside you stirs again, not loud but real. There's a kind of loneliness that doesn't announce itself. It doesn't look like tears or pleas for company. It looks like routines, like making coffee in silence, like eating meals in front of the television, like brushing your teeth while avoiding your own reflection. For many men over 60, loneliness becomes a quiet habit, one they've learned to dress up with independence. But beneath that stoic exterior is a body that's aching for connection, not just emotional connection, but biochemical one. Oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine, the very chemicals that create a sense of joy and bonding, begin to falter without touch, presence, or proper nourishment. Vitamin D and magnesium are deeply involved in mood regulation, yet they're often the first to disappear with age. Without them, the body becomes less resilient. Loneliness is no longer just a feeling. It becomes a physiological weight pressing on the chest, tightening the gut, draining the will. The tragedy? Most men won't speak of it. They'll say they're fine. They'll say they're used to it. But inside, they carry a hunger that no distraction can satisfy. It's not too late to reconnect, to nourish not only your body, but the part of you that still longs to be held, to laugh, to feel someone's breath beside yours in the quiet hours of the morning. There's a moment, quiet, heavy, when a man thinks about asking for help and then swallows the words instead. Not because he doesn't need it, but because somewhere along the way, he learned that needing is weakness, that real men push through, that discomfort is just something to be endured, especially when it comes to health, intimacy, or the slow erosion of energy. And so, many men after 60 suffer in silence. They watch their bodies change, their desires shift, their joy dim, and they say nothing. Even to the ones who love them most. They avoid doctors. They joke about getting old. They dismiss the creeping fatigue and forgetfulness as just age. But in truth, something inside is breaking, not beyond repair, but cracking under the pressure of pride. The nutrients that sustain vitality, like B12 for brain clarity, magnesium for sleep, or vitamin D for mood, go unspoken, forgotten, not because they're out of reach, but because asking feels like admitting failure. But what if asking is a weakness? What if it's the first step toward reclaiming strength? Not the strength of youth, but of presence. There's no shame in wanting more life. The only shame would be leaving it behind before you've truly lived it. As the years pass, a strange dissonance begins to form. The mind may feel alert, curious, and emotionally ready for connection, but the body doesn't always follow. You may feel the desire to reach out, to be close, to express warmth, but when the moment arrives, the body feels sluggish, unresponsive, or distant. This split between intention and sensation is not imaginary. It is real, and it is deeply unsettling. Many men begin to question themselves. Is it in my head? Have I lost the ability to feel? But the answer often lies in something more grounded, your biology. The nervous system depends on a delicate balance of nutrients, especially magnesium and vitamin B6, to regulate stress responses and support sensory flow. Without these, your body lives in a low-grade state of tension, unable to soften or receive. You may be there physically, but not fully present. It's like hearing a beautiful song through a wall, muffled, distant, just out of reach. This disconnect leads to frustration, avoidance, even withdrawal. But it doesn't have to be permanent. When your body is given the tools to reconnect, gently, consistently, it remembers, it reawakens, and suddenly, what fell out of sync begins to hum again in harmony. Even after 60, many men carry the same expectation they learned in their 20s, that intimacy must come with performance, that masculinity is measured by stamina, speed, and strength. It's a heavy script, one handed down silently through culture, locker rooms, and unsaid comparisons. But the body, wiser now, doesn't move at that tempo anymore. It softens. It listens more. It needs time. This shift can create an inner war, the soul craving tenderness and presence, while the mind demands a show. When that performance falters, because of fatigue, medication, stress, or simple biology, shame slips in. Quiet, corrosive shame. Some men pull away from intimacy altogether rather than face this imagined failure. But the truth is, the body isn't failing, it's evolving. It's asking for nourishment, not pressure. Nutrients like vitamin D and zinc play critical roles in testosterone regulation and energy balance. Without them, the body tires faster and recovers slower. But even more important than the chemical is the context. Connection thrives when the goal is not performance, but presence. The most powerful intimacy doesn't come from force. It comes from feeling. And the moment we stop performing and start listening, something beautiful opens, not the echo of youth, but the depth of being, years of holding it all together, providing, protecting, enduring, come with a cost. A man over 60 often carries decades of unspoken tension in his chest, shoulders, and gut. Maybe he doesn't even notice it anymore. He's gotten used to the tight jaw, the shallow breaths, the restless sleep. He tells himself he's fine. But the body remembers, and stress, especially chronic and quiet, depletes essential nutrients like magnesium and B-complex vitamins faster than the body can replace them. These are the very nutrients that calm the nervous system, support hormone production, and restore emotional resilience. Without them, even small frustrations feel heavier, and the ability to relax, really relax, slips away. Over time, stress doesn't just live in the mind. It erodes a foundation of physical and emotional intimacy. It dulls desire. It shrinks patience. It stiffens the body until even a simple touch feels foreign. This isn't about blame. It's about biology. The good news? The body is waiting. It wants to heal, and with the right support, it will. The man who spent decades holding the world on his shoulders deserves, finally, to feel held himself. Not someday. Now. There's a moment, subtle but piercing, when what was once a spark becomes a script. A kiss on the cheek, a shared meal, a quiet gnaw goodnight. Kind gestures, yes, but stripped of the aliveness they once carried. For many men over 60, intimacy slowly fades into routine. Not by choice, but by slow erosion. Energy dips, desire becomes unpredictable, and conversation schemes the surface. You still love your partner, but the space between you grows. And deep inside, there's a fear. Have I lost the part of me that knows how to feel? This isn't about fading love. It's about fading vitality. The body, lacking key nutrients like zinc and vitamin D, loses a hormonal fuel that once ignited spontaneity and drive. The heart still wants closeness, but the engine sputters. So you retreat to what feels safe, routine, predictable, quiet. But intimacy, true intimacy, isn't about force or frequency. It's about presence. When the body is nourished, the senses come alive again. The eyes linger longer. The hand reaches more freely. The smallest touch carries heat. And what was once a habit becomes, again, a choice, a living connection. It's not too late to return to that place. Aging doesn't just change the body. It changes how the world looks at you, or rather, how it stops looking. For many men past 60, there comes a quiet fear that they are no longer seen, not just by strangers on the street, but by loved ones, partners, even themselves in the mirror. The confidence of younger years begins to flicker. You might catch your reflection and wonder where that version of you went. This fear of invisibility is rarely spoken aloud, but it shapes how you show up. You begin to hesitate before initiating touch. You start to doubt whether your desire is still valid, still welcome. And when you feel unseen, you stop seeking out the light. But here's the truth. Visibility isn't about how others perceive you. It begins from within. When the body is cared for, fed what it truly needs, your presence changes. Vitamins like B12, magnesium, and D don't just boost energy and mood. They support the systems that keep your mind alert, your posture tall, your emotions expressive. When vitality returns, so does your radiance. People notice. You notice. Not because you're chasing youth, but because you're rooted in something deeper. The courage to be fully alive here and now. In many long-term relationships, silence creeps in quietly. It begins as comfort, knowing glances share routines, wordless rituals. But over time, that comfort can harden into distance. You stop asking how the other truly feels. You stop sharing the changes in your own body, your fears, your longings. Not because you don't care, but because you assume it's too late to shift anything. Too late to reignite passion. Too late to start a new kind of conversation. This silence becomes especially heavy when a man feels his vitality fading and doesn't know how to name it. He worries about being judged, about disappointing. So he stays quiet, even as the ache grows. But intimacy thrives in truth, not in perfection. Vitamins like magnesium and B-complex don't just support physical energy. They help regulate mood, stabilize emotions, and reduce the anxiety that makes vulnerability feel dangerous. And when the body softens, the heart follows. With the right care, a man can reclaim his voice, not to shout, but to whisper gently, "Here's where I am. Will you meet me here?" And in that question, the silence begins to break, not with fireworks, but with presence, with honesty, with the simple courage to be seen again. There comes a point in every man's life when the past begins to speak louder than the future. Moments missed, words left unsaid, opportunities for closeness brushed aside out of fear, pride, or exhaustion. Regret, once a faint shadow, becomes companion. You may look back and think, I should have taken better care of my body. I should have told her how I felt. I should have tried harder. And in that flood of reflection, the present can feel too late, too quiet, too far gone. But regret is not a verdict. It's a signal. It tells you what still matters, what you still long for. And that longing is sacred. Your body, even now, wants to serve you. It responds to care. It listens to intention. With essential vitamins like B12, D3, and magnesium, you give the raw materials to repair, not just tissue, but trust. Trust in your ability to feel again, to show up again, to offer something real. You can't rewrite the past, but you can decide that this chapter, this day, will not be lost to silence. You are not too old to change. You are right on time to begin again. There's a quiet shock in looking at yourself one morning and not recognizing the man in the mirror. The skin has changed. The muscles have softened. The posture, once proud, now curves ever so slightly inward. The changes didn't happen overnight, but one day they become undeniable. For many men over 60, the body begins to feel unfamiliar, a stranger you live inside. Movements aren't as fluid. Touch doesn't land the same way. And that loss of familiarity isn't just physical. It's deeply emotional. You begin to avoid your own reflection. You move less. You crave intimacy but hold back, worried about how you look, how you feel, how you'll be received. But the truth is, your body isn't betraying you. It's asking to be reintroduced, renourished, retrusted. Vital nutrients like magnesium, zinc, and vitamin D play an enormous role in rebuilding confidence from within. They regulate mood, awaken libido, and support strength, not just in the muscles, but in the spirit. With the right care, the body softens its defenses. It welcomes you back. And slowly, the stranger becomes familiar again. Not the same as before, but wiser, warmer, and worthy of love. Loneliness doesn't always look like solitude. Sometimes it hides in full houses, busy schedules, even in bed next to someone you love. For men over 60, this quiet loneliness can be especially deep. Friends have drifted, parents are gone, children are grown. The role you once played, provider, protector, builder, has shifted or vanished altogether. And though the world still moves around you, something inside feels still, isolated. You may smile, show up, do what's needed, but underneath, there's a longing for connection that goes unspoken. Because men are taught to be strong, to push through, to never admit when they feel alone. But the body keeps score. This kind of emotional drought affects everything. From sleep to energy, from mood to intimacy. A lack of key nutrients like magnesium and vitamin D can worsen feelings of disconnection, leaving you even more vulnerable to fatigue and withdrawal. Yet, there is a doorway. Tending to the body is the first gesture of returning to life. A daily commitment to nourishment says, I matter, I am not done. And in that care, slowly, the loneliness begins to lift. Not all at once, but like the first warm light touching a cold, forgotten room. But what if this isn't the end of something, but the beginning? What if this moment, this very season of life, isn't a slow fading into invisibility, but an invitation to return to yourself more deeply than ever before? The truth is, male sexuality after 60 doesn't disappear. It transforms. It shifts from urgency to presence, from proving to feeling, from performance to connection. And that shift, when supported gently and with care, can open a door that many men never knew existed. A form of intimacy that is grounded, full-bodied, and emotionally awake. Your body may be different now, yes, but different doesn't mean broken. It means wiser, more honest, more in tune with what truly matters. And it wants to work with you, not against you, with the right nourishment, vitamins that don't just serve the flesh but feed the nervous system, the heart, the inner vitality. You're not just fixing a problem. You're rediscovering your wholeness. There's a path forward, and it doesn't require turning back the clock. It requires turning inward, listening, and offering your body the kindness it's been waiting for. Every breath is a new beginning. Every touch, a chance to reconnect. Every morning, a reminder you are still here. And there is still time to begin again with softness, with strength, with soul. Let's pause for a moment, not to think, but to feel. The body you live in has carried you for decades. It remembers your triumphs, your losses, your deepest joys. And it speaks in whispers now, through sensation, through silence, through the pulse of longing beneath your skin. Sexual health after 60 isn't about chasing youth. It's about tending to the garden that still blooms inside you, if only you give it light. There are 3 pillars that can bring your senses back to life. 3 small rituals, rooted in care, that allow the vitamins you take to nourish more than just your cells. They awaken your presence. Pillar 1, breathing that touches you from within. Before touch, before desire, there is breath. Deep, slow, and conscious. Inhale through your nose, hold gently, and exhale with softness. Let your breath reach your belly. This kind of breathing activates your nervous system's calm core. It tells your body, I am safe. I can feel again. Paired with nutrients like magnesium, this breath calms tension, steadies the heart, and makes room for intimacy to rise gently. Pillar 2, touch that listens before it speaks. Begin with your own hands. Warm them. Place them over your chest or thighs, not to fix or stimulate, but to listen. Feel the warmth, the pulse, the quiet. When the body feels seen by your own touch, it begins to trust again. Vitamin D, which supports hormone balance, works beautifully alongside self-touch practices, bringing vitality not just a function, but a sensation. Pillar 3, self-compassion that nourishes the soul. You are not the man you were at 30. And that's a gift. Now, you can meet yourself without the masks. Self-compassion is a daily practice, one that softens shame and brings courage back to the heart. B12 supports mental clarity and emotional resilience, but it works best when paired with the inner voice that says, I am still worthy. I am still becoming. Sexual health, at its core, begins with how you speak to yourself. These 3 practices, when woven into your days, begin to change everything. The vitamins you take become more than supplements. They become symbols of devotion. You're not just supporting your health. You're reclaiming your story. If something in these words stirred you, even just a little, don't brush it aside. Maybe it was a reminder that your body still matters, Maybe it was a realization that you're not alone in your quiet fears. Or maybe, just maybe, it was a whisper hope that touched your heart when you least expected it. Whatever it was, let it stay with you. Let it root itself in the soil of your everyday life. Because you are not done. You are not invisible. You are not broken. If this spoke to you, if it softened something inside, leave a like. Share it with someone who needs to remember that aging isn't the end of desire. It's the beginning of a deeper, more soulful intimacy. And if you feel brave, share your experience in the comments. Your story may be the very thing that helps another man find his way back to himself. This is your time. Not for fading, but for rising, slowly, gently, powerfully. At this stage in life, you are not a dimming light. You are the slow-burning ember that still warms a room. You carry years beneath your skin, wisdom in your scars, and a quiet kind of fire that doesn't need a shout to be felt. The body may change. The rhythm may soften. But within you, there is still a pulse, steady, sacred, alive. This is not your last chance to be who you were. It is your first chance to be who you truly are. To move not with urgency, but with intention. To touch not to impress, but to connect. To love not for perfection, but for presence. Let the vitamins you take be more than nutrients. Let them be prayers. Small acts of devotion whispered into the temple of your body. And when you wake tomorrow, breathe gently, stand slowly, and remember, your desire has not disappeared. It has simply grown quiet, waiting for you to listen. If you'd like the full script formatted this way, I can begin revising each prompt accordingly.